Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Lawsplaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. And with me today is a special guest by the name of Dave Ciampa. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Dave is with me. You can probably see our faces switching back and forth there. Can you hear me okay, Dave?
Yep, I had a correct little problem on my side, but I have corrected.
It sounded like you did not have the stream on mute. How dare you?
Corrected. That's exactly what happened.
All right. So we are here. Dave and I are going to talk a little bit about we'll call them the unsung victims of child pornography and by extension, sex crimes. And really, I mean, this extends to all sorts of crimes, but the biggest one, and it's because of how we treat these particular crimes as a society and how they make us react at a visceral level. It's related to sexual offenses or offenses of a sexual nature. So we're going to talk about the families that are kind of left, I don't know, I guess sometimes torn asunder, sometimes just in these waiting periods. We're going to talk about all that. And hopefully we're going to do it without depressing you guys horrendously. But, you know, there's
no
going
way, no way.
there's going to be some, obviously some real subjects here. And I'm very gracious to Dave for reaching out to talk to me about this. And so with further ado, I do have two super chats to talk about real quick. But as always, if you have questions, drop a super chat. We'll read them for sure and answer those questions. Dave will answer the question if that's something that he can do, or I will answer the question if it's something he is not allowed to answer, if we think that would cause any complications to this case. I don't foresee much of that. I don't see much of a problem with that. So I think we're gonna be okay. But if there's something really red flaggish, I'll call it out and I'll just talk about it. But let me first say, let me read these. So from Adam Smith, he says, "Rest assured, Rackets, your signed book is coming." I believe that would be the signed book, The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. So I'm very looking forward to having a signed copy of The Wealth of Nations. And then Lucifer Love Monkey says, "Can't make it tonight. Look forward to it tomorrow morning." Well, thanks, buddy. I appreciate the donation. And with that, well, let's get started. So, Dave, you and I have only spoken for a couple minutes collectively, and it's largely been by direct message and then a few minutes while we set up here. So I don't really know you that well. I know a little bit of your story, and obviously I've got a couple of the documents that you've sent me, and we'll get into that in a minute. But first, tell me about you.
Okay, yeah, hi. So the story of me is that I'm just an average white male from Nashua, New Hampshire. Everybody, of course, is familiar with Nashua, New Hampshire. It's just north of Boston. It's where everybody goes to escape sales tax. But anyway, yeah, we've had a thing going on for a while, and it's I'm either hearing one of two sides. I'm either hearing how much you did the right thing, or how dare you betray this man, and the man being my father, and henceforth he'll be known as Jim because I don't like to call him my father. I gave him every opportunity to do the right thing, and he chose to do the wrong thing. I can elaborate more on that, but I don't really know what basics else you need to know about me. I'm an aspiring wealthy person.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, exactly. No, but that's pretty much the basics of it to start.
Sure. And so, you reached out to me after I did an interview with Abe, we'll call him Abe,
Right.
about who is a convicted pedophile. And you asked if I could come onto or if you could come. You didn't actually ask this. I think I ended up inviting you to come onto my show, but you didn't ask outright. But what? I guess what? Why did you reach out to me? What was it about? I guess what I do that made you think that would be good to tell your story. So how'd you get to me? How's that? How's that for a question?
Okay. All right. Well, trigger warning, I suppose, for folks at home. But you were doing that case, and you said, I will absolutely not say the fuck word on this show, right? But then you proceeded to explain what the case was about, and people were getting so offended in the chat room and things. Can you just skip this shit, please? And I said, skip what shit? Because I was so used to hearing this, and as far as all the people involved, it's the police, the lawyers, but as far as my family goes, I'm the only one out of everyone that has actually seen this shit, allegedly, I've seen. And you were talking, the 9-year-old filleted a grown man until fruition, and I'm like, that's the gravity of it. That's what we're talking about, and I would love the opportunity to talk about this more, in as safe a way as possible, because again, he has not yet been convicted of this fucking crime, even though all the evidence is there.
Right. So can you I'm sorry, what was his name? Jim, right? Was his name?
Jim, yes, and yeah.
Okay, because I don't. If you don't want to call him your father, then I don't want to do that either. So let's set up the backstory a little bit here. Jim is it's right in front of me. It's right in the document right in front of me that the world can see. You can't see this unless you've got the stream pulled up. But
I do.
Okay. So yes, I've got the letter sent to you regarding James Ciampa, who is Jim, and we'll call him Jim from now on. And let me just read this real quick so that people know where we are, and then we'll kind of get into how this all started, and we'll just go from there. I don't really know the story other than what's in pretty much this letter and 2 other documents you sent me, but I have not seen the criminal complaint. I don't know about how all the state got involved in any of this. And I don't know specifically what's on there. So that's going to be your solemn duty will be to fill us in on this story. But let me read this letter real quick. So this is from Megan Rosansky, the victim/witness advocate. You've been assigned a victim witness advocate, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. Okay, so it's Dear Dave, the above defendant, James Ciampa, was indicted this month on 10 charges of possession of child sexual abuse images. Each charge is a Class A felony punishable of up to 7.5 to 15 years in prison and a $4,000 fine. So, for those keeping score at home, these are cumulative charges. So he faces somewhere between 75 and 150 years in prison if he is found guilty on all 10 counts. Now, the way it's worded, I'm not familiar with New Hampshire's sentencing guidelines, but the way it's worded makes me think that there's a possibility that a judge could give less than 7.5 years for a particular sentence. He may be able to, or he's got a little discretion in there, but going off of the statutes, the gravity involved here is what is effectively a life sentence for any traditional adult person. So the defendant's arraignment has been scheduled for June 15th, 2018 at 10 a.m. in Hillsborough County Superior Court in Nashua. You're not required to be present for the arraignment, but have a right to attend if you choose to do so. If you do choose to attend, please let me know and I can arrange to go with you. I will make certain you receive a copy of the bail order as soon as we receive it from the court. It is possible the defendant will waive a formal arraignment. If he does this and bail is agreed upon, there will be no hearing. I will keep you informed. Generally, the next step is court scheduling a dispositional conference conference, approximately 45 days, blah, 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 blah. Procedure stuff that isn't really important here. But so this was back in May 21st of 2018, you got this letter. His arraignment was scheduled for June 15th. And did that arraignment happen on June 15th, or is that, was it delayed, or is it still not happened? What's up with this?
The lawyer is such a snake that I actually don't even recall. Basically, every time something is supposed to happen regarding this trial, there's supposed to be a court date or something formal. The lawyer comes up with something new. So you let me know when you want me to get into the beginning of this story, but
you can go back as long as you want. That was actually my next thing was so this is May 21st. You got this letter. But you said this process has been going on for a long time. So can you let's unwind the court stuff and you tell me, let's do this story wise. You tell me how the story starts. Where does it start for you?
All right. So that sounds good. This goes back a ways. I can explain that he was arrested the day that I went to the police. So a few weeks before that, I had gone to Jim to explain to him that I knew that this stuff existed on his computer. I'd seen it, I'd stumbled upon it, and then later, after stumbling upon it, I chose to investigate it further and just discovered the most horrific things that can be done to children. And so I had to confront him, and nobody knew about this. And so I chose to confront him myself, and he couldn't look me in the eye as I was telling him about it. And I said, listen, man, you gotta get rid of the computer. You gotta burn it, boil it, send it to the dump, burn the house down, get rid of everything. And then you need to get help. And I had actually sought out organizations because as far as getting help for being a pedophile, there's not much out there. Because if you tell your therapist, if you tell a police officer, if you tell anyone, they're legally obligated to go to law enforcement to protect their own ass.
Right.
So I had sought out organizations before I confronted him, and one of the things I found was this organization called VERPED, which is I actually got from The Biggest Problem in the Universe. Which Biggest Problem in the Universe, Split Up Dick Show, and whatever the fuck Maddox's stupid show is called. And Dick Show is how I found you. But they had a problem on that show about, it was pedophiles, and I think Maddox brought it in.
Right.
And
shocker.
He had indicated that if you are a pedophile, I don't know why he brought this up, but he said if you are a pedophile, you can go to this organization called VERPED. And they're called virtuous pedophiles, and they're self-admitted pedophiles who have not offended and not assaulted children, which is what I want to believe for my father. I have no recollection as a child of being assaulted, nor does my brother or my sister, which is good. But he just said, "Don't worry about it." He just said, "Don't worry about it." And so, okay, I didn't worry about it. And weeks or later, or so, the timeline's fuzzy. Found more of the shit. It didn't go away. So I roped in my brother. My brother roped in my mother, and the most important person of all, in my opinion, in this situation was my mother, the one that was married to him and in that house, and thusly possibly liable for what was coming into that house.
Right.
I would not do anything until this was greenlit by my mother. And I told the police that day. But my brother actually tried to be the one that told the police after my mother had greenlit it. She said, just give me a minute. Wait for me to talk to him. I keep touching my face, and it's a nervous tick. So she actually confronted him, and he said, oh, that's just something that pops up. That's just something that
Right. The
and he,
viruses, right? It's the
yeah,
viruses.
yeah, that's it. He can't help it. But it wasn't viruses, it wasn't pop-ups, it was an enormous collection of hideous stuff. And she said, I know that you're looking at this stuff and it's wrong, it's despicable, and it's wrong. And he denied it. And so my brother tried to turn him in. The cops said that would be hearsay. And then so they called me from work and told me to come in, and I had to come in, and I very cautiously um, told them the story because I wanted to make sure. One of the things that Jim thought was, the police are your friends, and one of the things I
Right.
heard you say, Nick, was always get a fucking lawyer. And he literally walked around the house when they showed up and showed him where all of his child porn was, saying things like, this is where my child pornography is. And like,
Whoa.
they have him dead to rights. They have him screwed. And so they in this that was back in April 2016.
Okay.
Okay.
Whoa. So this is 2.5 years ago
Yeah.
that you contacted the police. So this is, I mean, if we're on the Dick Show meta timeline here, this is during biggest problem then.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, this is prior to the breakup, not too long before the breakup because it's getting to be that old now.
And
But
that's basically how I measure my life now is based on Dick and Maddox.
sure. But it's interesting to think back. Yeah, and unironically, there is people talk about how impactful the biggest problem was, and for them as listeners, and I do think that there's something to that because uh, anything that you're stuck with for years, like the biggest problem, 2 years, and then it changes. Like you can mark a lot of events off in 2 years. So that is, it's funny that you say that, but it's also partly true, at least for me. But okay, so this is April 2016. The
Yeah.
cops come to your house, and he's just walking through, admitting to everything, telling them where everything is. I find it interesting that they said that your brother's report would be hearsay because
He didn't see it.
well. I get that, but like hearsay is a standard of evidence in court. I don't. I guess I'm not familiar with police procedure in New Hampshire, obviously, but um, just lawsplaining time. Hearsay is a federal rule of evidence that has been adopted by every state, and it is for the admission of evidence into court. Uh, you have rules of evidence to allow someone to allow a fair trial, right? So if hearsay would be if there's someone who made a statement, and instead of having that person come in and talk about that statement, I say, well, I heard this person make that statement, which means this. That's hearsay. But evidence of a crime, yeah, my brother told me that he found this on our dad's computer, and we think you should check it out. Like that's, I mean, they don't. I don't know
Well,
why
let
they
me
would say it's
explain.
hearsay, but no,
Well, I'll try to.
yeah, go
I'll
ahead.
try to explain this. I'm sorry about this. I forget his name, but this devil lawyer that Jim has employed. Um, he. I think that the prosecution knows that they're going up against this guy, and he was at one time a prosecutioner
Uh,
against this kind of crime.
Is it Kent Smith or Roger Chadwick?
Ken Smith is the prosecutioner.
Okay, so
Roger Chadwick, I can't remember specifically. That's his name. That sounds right. But at any
that's
rate,
that's what's on the documents here. So I'm
oh,
guessing it's
then
probably him.
that's probably him. So I had looked him up, um, in the news for a few years, and I guess he had prosecuted these kinds of people, so that's why he's so good at defending, because he knows what the prosecution's trying to do, and
Right.
he knows how to do what's best to defend his scumbag clients. So I had seen. I can't speak to the guilt or innocence of this person in this story, but I had seen that he had defended somebody and gotten them off in his statement to the press after the innocence verdict. um, there was a lot of things that I saw in the trial that pointed to him being innocent. But one of the things that Roger Chadwick said to the press was like, "Oh, the place that the assault was said to have taken place doesn't make any sense. Like you don't butt fuck a little kid in a hallway. You do that out in the woods. You know what I mean? That's like a
Oh,
Donald Trump kind of argument that doesn't make any fucking sense. It's like why you can assault anyone anywhere. Like,
right.
why is the room something you said to the press? But anyway, but just the thought that came into his head. But so the prosecution knows they're going up at this guy, and they just want to make it as tight as possible. So they roped me into this process. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yep. And I mean, it makes sense if they're trying to get a search warrant, if they've got a better option to do it. It's just if if they actually said hearsay, it's just kind of funny because it shouldn't matter whether it's hearsay or not. But I'm dwelling on something that is unimportant. Okay, so we're at April 2016. Cops come. You said he gets arrested that day, correct?
Yeah, he does. And the complicated part of this is for probably for an audience hearing this story is trying to understand why um, my mother is still in the picture here. So um, she she was aware. She greenlit the operation. She was aware that we were going to do this, and it happened. She went home. He went home, and then I think they arrested him a day or two later. Um, he She let him sit in the jail cell for a while, and then she posted bail. And I don't know if the average person knows this, but the bail is it's like 10% of whatever they say the bail is. It's like weird.
Yeah.
Um,
So when you get assigned a bail number, um, you can pay that full cash amount, put it down, and then as long as you show up for everything, you get it back. Or if you don't have it, and a lot of people don't because it might be like $200,000 or something like that, you can put 10% down towards what's called a bail bond. Usually it's 10% down plus a small like a percentage of the 10% extra for a fee for the bail bondsman, and then you don't get that back, but you only have to pay 10%, and then the bail bondsman will actually put down the remaining amount, and then they're typically certified to track people down and arrest them themselves if they skip court, because they're also going to collect on the money from that. So that's kind of where that 10% number comes from. But sorry if I interrupted. Please go on.
okay, no, and I wanted you to explain that because I didn't understand it. But so yeah, so basically, since a few days after that date, he's been a free man, a free, currently 69-year-old man. And I think as a defense lawyer for that guy, being that he walked around and told the cops where all the stuff was, the defense lawyer is just going to try to stall this as long as possible until the client agrees um, to the to the plea deal, which was offered, and the prosecution offered 5 to 10. And he will not take it because he will not admit that he's a pedophile.
So
He thinks
he's
that.
he's facing 75 to 150 years. The prosecutor offered 5 to 10. So basically, to plea guilty to one of the charges is what I'm guessing he would do. And they may even reduce it from a Class A to a Class B felony, is what the sounds of it are. If he's getting 5 to 10 rather than the 7.5 to 15.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
know. I've never heard an interpretation that this would be somehow 100 years in jail, but it doesn't really matter because 7 to 10 years in jail for him is is basically the last chapter of his life, so that's good enough for me. But yeah, a plea deal, 5 to 10 years, and that would be the best he could get. And I've actually talked to people who've said they've been in jail with child porn possessors or child offenders, and they thought that I the people I was telling this story to, I've told the story a few times,
Sure.
thought that I wanted the best for him. And so they were trying to assure me that, listen, I was in jail with people who had been arrested for child pornography. It's not that bad. Basically, they get their own sections of the prisons. Nobody's allowed to go near them because they know that like people will beat him up and and if he gets good behavior, he'll be out in like 2 years. And I'm like, that's not what I want to hear.
Right.
That's not what I want to hear, because before I chose to tell the rest of my family, I asked him, "Hey, Jim, what would what would happen if mom died?" And he said, "Well, that would be great because I'd never have to talk to you or the other kids ever again."
Hmm.
And I said, Dad, I love you, but how can you say stuff like that and expect me to like you?
Yeah.
And he said, "I don't really care if you like me. What good have you done my life?"
Whoa.
So, exactly. And you know what? I've done his life a lot of harm. I admit. I've had addiction problems. I've had fiscal irresponsibility and stuff. But he was always confusing. I'm sorry to get too emotional about this, but he was always confusing like doing what is necessary to do because you're raising a child who is helpless, and thusly you have to pay for their stuff and give them food, and
Right.
actually wanting kids and loving them. And um, the Ciampa side of the family has basically excommunicated me, saying, "How dare you? How could you do this to Uncle Jimmy or whatever?" Um, because he's such a good guy, he's such a charismatic guy. He would never, but they don't know the same person I do. They don't know what he said when I was holding the nails over his coffin, you know, and I gave him the hammer to nail it. Um, at no point did was I ever trying to triumph over this man. I let him dig his own grave.
Right.
And the only funny part about it is that I actually knew that when the cops showed up that he would walk around and show them where all the child porn was, because he always taught us the cops were our friends, and we learned at a very early age you're supposed to lie to the cops.
So, so I, if you don't mind, you apologize for getting a little emotional. You don't ever need to apologize for anything like that. But if we can sit in, it's up to you, of course. But I mean, so can you talk about you said that you made things difficult for him. You said you had addiction problems. Can you give me any of the, or do you want to give me any of that background? Just trying to paint a picture for people about, I guess, what this whole painting looks like, right?
Yeah, sure. You know, from from my mother's side of the family, I don't know how much it's just going to
It's
cause a
it
problem. But
it's
from
up
my
to
mother's
you.
side of the
So
from my mother's side of the family comes the addiction gene. So we're prone to addiction, and my mother is the nicest woman in the universe, and my father's Islamic law. So basically, his policy towards drugs on the Ciampa side, there was no such thing as drugs and alcohol abuse, but on the chat list said there was, and it was Islamic law. It was, if I ever catch you doing anything illegal, any drugs, any shit like that, then I will bring you to the police myself. I will
sure,
sell you right to them, because I don't want that in my house. It's my house, my rules, my. You guys serve me, and da da da. And so I don't know. I guess at some point it started to feel like doing the opposite of everything that he wanted was like the desirable course. And so I don't know, at 17, 18 years old, when I started to get into substances, and I found that ignorance was bliss. So But we've all struggled with it. All, my brother and sister, who are 12, 13 years older than me, I was an accident baby.
Sure.
they didn't think I was going to get through, but I did. Um, anyway, so everybody struggled with it, and we've learned to live next to it without any help from Jim, who should be there in those instances. And when it came time, like when we were at our rock bottoms, and we were getting interventions and stuff like that, he would say things like, "I don't know why you didn't think you could just come talk to me." It's like, because you said you would cut off our hand if we were ever caught with pot in the house.
Yeah. Now, can I stop you for just a second? Because
Sure.
you're saying Islamic law, which I'm taking to be a euphemism, but is he particularly religious, or was this the code of Jim, or was he basing this sort of ethos that he was using on something else?
Code of Jim. I'm being hyperbolic, but not by much. The
Right.
idea that you would steal a loaf of bread and have your hand cut off, that type of deal.
Right.
No offense to the religions, anything like that. I'm purely talking about what a shithead he was. So, by the way, people in the stream, I warned Nick that I'm from New England and we swear a lot here. So. But anyhow, so that's where that came from, and it was this weird, well, I don't know, and an intervention is public. You have 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever other people there, and Jim's there. I don't know why you couldn't talk to me in front of all those people, But one-on-one, he wasn't looking me in the face unless he was pissed off at me and telling me like how much I fucked up his life, and it's like, why didn't you prepare me for my own life? You know what I mean? He just wanted my mother, and my mother wanted kids, so we exist now. And he thought he had control over his family, and I've shown him he didn't. So we can get back into the trial now. It was
absolutely
450 years ago this trial started, and it hasn't begun yet. But yeah, we were assigned a victim witness advocate about a year ago because I kept harassing the prosecutioner and telling him, like, look, I've worked for the Telegraph. I am reaching out to organizations that try to protect children. I wasn't getting any responses, but I was trying to tell him, look, I'm willing to like make this public and make this big deal, because it feels like you guys are failing. You're failing me, you're failing my mother, you're failing the kids. And when I said the most important person to my mother was my mother in this whole ordeal, when I was talking to her about that, I said, who's the most important person in this? And she said, the children. And I said, shit. You're right. Like, even because he's perpetuating it, children are getting hurt.
Right.
And it's not there. You can put a wedge of separation in between them, but offending and not offending is still, you're looking at children that are actually getting raped.
Yeah, and to be clear, we don't have to go into too graphic a detail, but you mentioned, what Jim had on his computer was not, this is serious stuff, right? Like that's what you've expressed to me. Like, so, there's, how do I phrase this? There are degrees, right? There are degrees of this stuff, and it's not to say that any degree, once you can be at boiling. We'll try to analogize this if I can. You can be at boiling, and that's bad. And then being at 1,000 degrees, water is still boiling, or maybe don't at me, physicists. Okay. Whoa, what is that? Is that a plane or something?
My computer's overheating. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. That's fine. So all of this stuff is bad. But there's some stuff that people would justify as, for example, art. Some people might consider uh, quote unquote tasteful nudes of children to be artistic or something like that. You can find news stories about this. You can see it on Vice, and it's actually becoming more and more prominent, it seems, or we're hearing about it more, or maybe I'm just hearing about it more because of the subject matter. My brain is picking up on this stuff, but I don't think so. I think there's actually more of it. But I recently saw. It was an article in some publication. It was a photographer who was like taking pictures of nude children affected by civil war in some country or something like that. And it was like, what is going on? But there are people who think that there's some sort of artistic purpose to some of these things, and then there's stuff that is consensual, right? Because the children are too young to give effective consent, but some people might suggest that there's consent involved, and that can be caused by all sorts of damage. But then there's outright non-consensual forcible stuff. So if we're on a scale of 1 to 10 on this, from like the artistic sort of pictures that people might argue for, all the way up to a 10, which would be horrific violence towards children. What level are we talking here?
10.
Yeah, that's what I
Flat
was.
out. I mean, I can't stress enough. I possess the verbal prowess to describe in graphic detail what it is that I saw, but I choose to withhold it to protect people because I still have nightmares.
Yeah,
Um, and I've had conversations with people like trying to figure out, like, okay, consider pedophilia in the same way that one might consider homosexuality, where like, okay, you're just attracted to the same sex, right? You're just attracted to children. There could be such a thing as like a virtuous pedophile. They can't help it. Some people fuck cars, but you know, it's the thought crime idea, and and if they can't help it, then what do you do? But at the same time, I can't. The stuff that I saw, I can't imagine wanting to do anything other than throw up when I saw it.
yeah,
And this was arousing the man. And, that's as far as I want to go. You can put the pieces together.
yeah.
So basically, what he allegedly did was he was for years he was pulling this stuff up on the computer, and then he had this shitty little high-8 camera that he would hold up to the screen, which this was suspicious as shit. I already knew, but I would walk in and see him holding this high-8 camera, and then to top it off, he just put it on the ground next to a little bench in the same computer room, that like the community household computer room. And at some point, it never dawned on him that when I would spot him holding that camera to the screen, that I might be curious what's on that camera, right?
Right.
And sure enough, the camera had the little high-8 tape in it, and it has a little view screen on it, so you can pull it out. The view screen didn't work very well because it was from like 2002, but I was still able to see what it was, allegedly. But the stupidity and the arrogance that like I would find this and not turn him in if he didn't stray from it, if he didn't get away from it. But so let's go about 6-7 months ago.
Sure.
I've been I've been struggling. Once I found out and I decided to turn him in, my wonderful fiance and my mother-in-law took me in so I could get out of that house, which I needed to flee from as fast as possible. And I'd been struggling to get any sort of a career going, whatever I wanted to do. And I really wanted to stay away from manual labor, which is like oddly what I've been doing for the last few years. But I had a career in e-commerce for about 7 years, and I lost that, and I ended up doing like lawn care, which I actually enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, without much further rambling, I decided I was going to hook up with this temp agency, and I warned the temp agency that this stuff was going on. I may have to have a day off. So whatever assignment you have, I need the XYZ these days so that I can come be state's witness to help put Jim in jail. And they actually had set a trial date at some point. And I said, okay, I'm going to need those couple of days off. And the day before those days came, and I was shaking, I was vomiting, I was having up all night, no sleep, nightmares when I did sleep. And they said, hello, David. I hope you're well. We just are letting you know that the lawyer wants to do a competency assessment and set just to put this off. Then when he was deemed competent, it was put off again. But let's go back one more time to that initial competency thing.
Right.
I had gotten a temp assignment at Comcast. Comcast, I don't want to slander them, but I was in their customer service
I will.
department.
Comcast can eat a bullet.
Yeah. And Comcast, I thought like, oh, I got this temp job with Comcast in the customer service department. Maybe because I've had so much customer service experience, I can bring a new level of customer service to a company that is typically associated with the ninth circle of hell when it comes to customer service.
Right.
Now, when I found out that trial was delayed, when I got my days all set up, I was listening to them explain. So you want to click this here when the customer calls in about this, and then you want to click this, and you want to tell them that you want to get your services set up, da da da. And I just couldn't care. I couldn't care about what this person was trying to train me. I'm like, okay, I can't handle this. I gotta go right now. I'm gonna try to come back tomorrow. Temp job, so they just let me go, and I collapsed into a naked fetal position, crying on the floor. It was like being in a siege. I had nothing left. This had been going on for so long, and it's still going on. That I built this wall, Nick. I built this wall. I said, okay, I can't afford this. I have a son. I have a daughter on the way. I got to get my shit together. I got to get my life going. And I can't let this trial, this man, and the legal system affect what happens to my kids. So I built this wall, and every time I get an email, it says, just, hello, David. I hope you're well. Just writing to let you know that this whole shit was delayed again. And I'm like, not surprised.
Right.
And it was delayed. And I become immune to it. Only when I said to you that I kind of wanted to come on this show and tell my story did the wall start to spring some cracks. Now, luckily, I have this perfect support system. We're constructing this new family out of my mom, my fiance, my mother-in-law, my brother, my sister, my brother's girlfriend, and all these people. And it's just, if they're able to plug those holes, and and here I am on the show, and I think my fiance thought I was gonna be crying. I'm mostly trying to make jokes, and not get too emotional, but I don't know what good content is on your show on lawsplaining,
I don't either. I'm not too worried about it. I just try to have good conversations, and learn, and hear people's stories because, I mean, so when you first talked to me, you told me that you had to turn your dad in for this, and I think, like, let me be very clear. I think what you did, as far as you gave him an opportunity. You said you got to walk away from this stuff. This is poison. It's poison, not just for you, right? You're in a house of people. You can't do this. You gave him a chance, and he didn't do it. I get it. You're not wrong in turning him in. Like I talk a lot about not talking to cops and all that stuff, and the notion of protecting the rights of people and all of that. But here you have a guy committing a crime, unapologetically, no remorse, and no indication that he's even willing to consider that it's wrong or damaging to someone else. And I think people think that with this crime, people who are committing it largely, they're unable to step back and say, "Whoa, like what I'm watching here, what I'm contributing to, this caused real hurt and damage to someone." They're unable to get there. I don't know what it is. Although from what you've described, it sounds like Jim has a real empathy problem in general.
Sure.
But so I
He's
want to
a
be.
he's a
Oh,
narcissist, is what it is. He's it's always been he's in control. Uh, a whole number of personality disorders that led to this, this issue. And Clay, I wanted to in the chat room there, Clay, I wanted to apologize for neglecting other holes when discussing what could be violated.
no,
Um,
no. What they're talking about is I just fixed it, guys. I'm sorry. I have a new, because of the new layout. I have a new OBS profile, and so my mic was set up on stereo channels rather than forcing mono, and I'm on like the left side of my mic, and so I got close to it and was like blowing out eardrums on the left side. So I apologize, guys, but I down mixed it to mono, so that shouldn't happen
uh,
anymore.
I thought they were talking about other things to assault.
No, no, I think it was just me assaulting their ears, and for that, guys, I do apologize. Boomer audio is correct. Pseudo memes. so,
There you go.
so anyway, but yeah, so I want to be clear that I think, at some point you do turn family in, and you gave him quite a bit of leeway. It sounds like, but the
Yeah.
reason that this is so interesting to me is you've got your family, who's walking through this with you. You've got your brother, your sister, and your mother, and it sounds like you guys do have a relationship. You're almost like, you've been through this together, and that's still going on. But you mentioned on the Ciampa side of the family that things are not as cozy.
Yeah. They the Ciampa side had this illusion of closeness, and there wasn't. After my grandparents died on that side, there was things kind of dissolved, and people took active measures to maintain relationships in the family. But um, as it turned out, somehow him having a collection of child pornography and me being state's witness was my fault, like in their eyes. And I know that like charisma and things like that are something that I get from him in a way. So I know that I can sell any story, he can sell any story. So somehow I'm looking like the bad guy to the Ciampa family, but I feel like maybe time will fix that kind of thing. Even though it's been 2.5 years, when the man goes to jail, um, maybe my cousins who are like, I'm so disappointed in you for being proud of what you've done. I'm like, well, I got a whole public full of people saying like, it looks like you took the right steps and did what you needed to do. And they said, family, it's always family, family at all costs. And I said, at some point you have to abandon family and you have to think about society. You have to think about mankind. You have to think about like if they hadn't actually seen what I saw, and I'm happy to describe it, and I'm not happy to, but I will describe it in court and to a jury of his peers because it's disgusting, it's wrong, and if I were to protect him because he's my family, I'd be wrong, and I
Right.
know that in my heart, I know that, but it's still hard because of who he is.
Yeah, and so let me think here. Did you? Oh wait, there are a couple super chats. Let's do those, and then I have a couple more questions about the Chiampa side of the family, if you don't mind, just because I'm curious about it, and I want people to be able to kind of follow breadcrumbs through this, because if they can relate, if they're in similar situations, I want them to see what this stuff kind of looks like and does. But Ryan English sent a chat, and he says, which do you think came first, narcissistic and abusive, etc., or involved in child pornography? Does one lead to the other, or is it a cluster of bad traits? And what do you think about that? I mean, you were on the timeline um, before, better than any of us. So
Yeah, I'll be happy to take that. So I knew about his involvement in pornography since I was a child. You know, how many times you hear stories about like finding a stack of Playboys under a mattress or something? That's
right.
it. I know. I'm a really old man.
Yeah, I don't,
got my walker next to me here. But anyway, um, so if they're gonna discover whatever it is that you think you're keeping private, and I actually forgot. A friend of mine reminded me because my brain blacked it out that like there was bestiality and stuff like that, and
uh,
it was so disturbed by it that like my brain just forgot about it. I'm like, oh, he's watching the Playboy channel, and which that's women naked with their breasts out, not a big deal, but jerking off a dog is a different story, and I forgot. So
degrees,
yeah,
y'all. Degrees.
degrees. There's different ways that one can get to there, and that may be why he's so insistent on not admitting he's a pedophile. It's there is such a thing as porn addiction, stuff like that, but his lack of understanding about our addiction, uh, and then criticizing us for how we handled his addiction. We absolutely considered the fact that he's been looking at porn for a long time, and this stuff doesn't do it for him, this stuff doesn't do it for him, this stuff doesn't do it for him. So he has to keep going on and on and on until somehow he gets to child porn, and that's what does it for him. We had to consider that possibility because I read articles and shit. Sorry, I'm gonna try to kill
Oh, that's okay.
the um, so and that's why I offered to get him help, because I did have genuine understanding that like you can't help what you're attracted to, because I'm a straight man. I'm only attracted to adult women. Like that's how it goes. I'm not attracted to adult men. I'm not attracted to children. I'm not attracted to cars. I'm attracted to adult women. And as you grow older, you're supposed to like kind of keep it somewhere. I know that youth is generally considered sexy, but I look at 22-year-olds now, and I'm like, you're not supposed to be driving a car when you're 9 years old. Like,
Right.
they look like kids to me, and thusly, if they were in a pornography video, I'm like, oh, that poor girl. Like, this is, But 12 years old, I'm like, you're raping that kid, because I'm an adult. I know better. I know that. Like, that's fucked up. And how you're not accepting the help that your son is offering you help. And that's the part he's leaving out when he tells the story to the Ciampa family, is that I did try to help him. All right. And they don't know the man. They think they know the man. He's Uncle Jimmy. He's an absolute asshole. So the which came first, the narcissism or the child porn? It was the narcissism. He wanted my mom. My mom wanted kids. He didn't want kids. We came to be because he wanted my mom. He said, "Okay, I will agree to be married to you as long as you have kids. As long as you rear the kids. They don't cause me any problems. I don't have to deal with them." And the only time he actually had to deal with us was when we started costing him money. Like when we got a speeding ticket for $500 or something like that, and we had no means of paying it. Like then he would give us a big ass lecture, and he would actually look us in the eyes, which he never did the rest of the time.
Mm,
So the narcissism actually absolutely came first. So.
gotcha. Um, I want to say thank you to Ben for the donation. He didn't have a comment attached. And we'll get to Clay's roommate in just a second, because he's got a very good question, I think. But I find an interesting parallel here in the stream we had with Abe. Of course, he talked about his descent through the degrees of pornography, we'll call it. Um, where he went from, just normal, I guess, heteronormative pornography. Is that, are we using these types of phrases now?
No
But
idea, Nick.
yeah, me either. This is a world I didn't ever expect to be in, right? So he goes from heteronormative pornography, and it sounds like a similar track to what Jim had. He was getting into bestiality, violence and gore. I don't know. He didn't mention like violent, gory pornography. There is snuff pornography out there that is, some is fake, some is real. That's another topic for another day. But you mentioned finding bestiality stuff in Jim's collection, and then he went into child pornography, which, not to make any sort of deterministic point about, I guess, these areas of sexuality. We've got this emerging conversation in society about LGBTQ, and then whatever plus gets added to that. Some people want to have a P on there for pedo, for example, like that it's a sexual orientation, like these the guys that you mentioned, the virtuous pedophiles or whatever, and there are people out there. I think Maddox talked about them. Destiny has talked about like ethical child pornography or something like that. And then you've got kind of this idea, but what we see in Jim's case and what we see in Abe's case is this a literal slippery slope, right? They start with this one step into what vanilla pornography, and then suddenly whatever is in them, and I'm going to say it's in them because a lot of people, more people than ever want to admit, of course, are, have at least observed vanilla pornography at some point in their lives. And except no pastors ever have. Remember that. But they didn't go down that road, right? Like they didn't look for the bestiality. They didn't look for the violent pornography. They didn't look for the child pornography because there's something further there. But it's I don't have anywhere I'm going with this other than it's just interesting to me because some people say there's a slippery slope, and I think at some point there is. But it's not. I think the normal person can't comprehend that because they haven't gone through it, and they probably don't interact with people who have. But
I wonder, I wonder why people, pornography in general, it makes me uncomfortable now just because of the situation. But obviously, I'm a serial monogamist, and I don't understand why you don't just seek out your partner. It's. I find women are pretty willing to try whatever it is what you want to try out. So it's basically, why they seek this fantasy world where it's fictional, lovemaking, and there's so many different kinds of it. But now I'm like, it's confusing me because I'm like, if only as it was intended to be, my father simply sought out my mother when he had these kinds of urges, like this whole process could have been derailed. Or could it have? Maybe he just likes the idea of having power, that kind of power over children or something like that, and that premise. I don't know. I can't speak to that, and I'm not even allowed to say at this point he's actually guilty because he's currently innocent until proven guilty. So,
well, I mean, legally innocent, sure, until proven guilty, but we are shockingly allowed to judge people by their actions, especially when we're directly aware of them. So, whatever you say what you're comfortable with, but I know if Jim was someone I knew, I'd be pretty comfortable saying he was he was guilty of some horrific things, whether or not he had a legal excuse for doing them or is convictable is different from a moral failing. And there are moral failings. Like we can decide that there are moral failings as a group, and I think largely you find that society, when they're confronted with the horrors of pedophilia in action, they largely consider it a moral failing, and the people who don't are a tiny minority. Clay's roommate asked a question. He said, "If you had a better relationship with Jim, would you have still turned him in?"
No, no, because a better relationship would imply that the man would have listened to me when I was closing in and trying to make this decision. I gave him all the tools to destroy himself, and he gave me nothing but hate. He gave me, he's an elderly man he's so regretful. His biggest piece of advice was, don't ever get married, don't have kids, and that's not for me. I I have a fiance who I love more than anything, and I have a son, and I couldn't be happier that he exists and he's my son, and I'm raising him, actively trying to raise him. I have a daughter on the way, and we have, it's not going well. She's in the hospital. My fiance's in the hospital right now because her blood pressure can't maintain right. My son was delivered 2 months early, and this is all very stressful and stuff like that. But I want these kids, I want these people in my life. I want to create this new family. I don't understand the idea of him creating people, like procreating, and then wanting nothing to do with them. I think he took me and showed me how to play basketball poorly one time and said, don't ever say I didn't try to do anything for you. I'm like, well, you went to a park and threw a ball and at the hoop and missed a lot. Like,
Yeah, yeah, and I know some narcissists, and or who I would consider narcissists. Not a doctor, right? But I know some people who I would consider narcissists, and it's interesting because that that little joke, that little don't say I never tried to teach anything or never gave you anything or whatever. It's like that they'll say it after the smallest favor, and at least the ones I know, it's a very dismissive or self-deprecating, sort of like a little ha-ha aside, but it's so true. Like they find virtue in this tiny act of regular decency, right? Like a dad playing basketball with his son is something, some monumental achievement of dadhood. No, it's just the regular decency. But it's like, yeah, well, but look what I did for you here. And haha, because yeah, it's just basketball. But I think there's something in there for them where it's like, no, see, I did it. I took this step. I did that thing. Now I'm gonna go back to me because I've done my thing for a while. But that's just interesting to me because yeah,
and you know what? It works because I do remember that time that he brought us to see
of
every
course
single
you
one
do.
of his
Of course.
every single one of his kids remembers the one time that he indicated in some way, shape, or form that he was proud of us. For my sister, it was she was putting on makeup, and he walked by and he said, "What are you putting on makeup for? You're pretty as you are." He said that once to
Mm.
her. To my brother, it was he put his seatbelt on. He was like 17, and he was driving, and my father Jim got in the passenger seat, and he goes, "Do you always wear your seatbelt?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm proud of you." And that was it. He remembers that. And then for me, it was because I was doing martial arts, which he never went to or attended, and so they filmed my tournament, and I got a kick to the head in the Kumite tournament, and he goes, "Whoa, that was awesome! I taught him that." He
Yeah.
absolutely did, but it works. He did nothing but pay for stuff, and um, we do remember those tiny little mundane nothing moments as something more grandeur than they were. Um, he constructed it that way, and
Right.
That's narcissism. So, remember that time I did that thing for you? You owe me. You know, I don't owe you shit. You know, I'll throw the money at you through the glass in the jail cell, asshole.
Yeah.
That one a
Yeah.
little too heavy for you?
It's you. You and I can very much identify with you on the kids, right? I have five. Most people watching know that I have five children, and
Oh my god.
I can't imagine. What's crazy is when I think back to the times when I had 4 and 3 and 2 and 1 and 0. I can't even picture what life was like, and my kids get on my nerves with little things, sure,
Yeah.
but it does that stuff's always this petty little thing, and it's like, oh, I'm just busy right now, but if they weren't there, like I don't know what that would even be. I don't know any one of them. And when Lady Rackets and I will be away for a weekend or a day or something, there's an absence, and I can't identify with someone who doesn't get that, who has it, right, and doesn't get it. Like people who don't have kids, like I get that they don't understand that, because I didn't either, and I still don't. I don't, to some level. Like with each kid, it was like, okay, what's this going to be like? And then you have them. It's like, oh, this is just the new normal, and that's fine. So no, um, it it hurts me at a fundamental level to hear about your relationship with Jim. Like it really does. That's so it took me a minute, but
Yeah. And then no, and none of the. I lost an entire half of a family, and honestly, I didn't lose much. They're all going to have access to this URL and be able to see um, what I think about the fact that like they're disappointed in that I made the wrong choice. Fuck you. Um, I made the right choice. You know it. You don't want to accept it about this man, and I was wrestling with it for so long and trying to deny and trying to, but it is what it is. And when I gave the man a choice on how his life could possibly go the next 10 years, he said, "Nope, you don't have control over my destiny right now." And I absolutely did. I absolutely did. But now the court system has dominion over him, and they're doing such a bang up job. And I can't wait to send this link to them, because oh my god, this victim witness advocate. I'm sorry, Megan. You are a fucking fantastic soul. You're a beautiful soul. You're a wonderful person. But I have a suspicion that you're a secretary and you don't actually know anything about being a victim witness advocate. Every time I get an email from you, it's a template, you know. Hello, David. I hope you're having a good day. Like, dude, every time you're emailing me, I'm not having a good day. So just skip that part. Just say, okay, you know what? The trial got delayed again. Are you surprised? No, of course you're not, because that's what he's doing. And we're failures. And I told him, like, Kent, you must feel like a failure. You must feel like you're screwing up your job. And I get the feeling he doesn't think he's a failure. I know the
yeah.
court systems are flooded and stuff like that, but they assign a witness victim advocate to me, sending me email templates. We are the unspoken victims of this. We are the unseen, unheard of, and we're shit poor, and we're trying to make our lives work around this thing. And at the one time that I need the government, they're just not coming through here. So
Yeah. And when you're trying to work past something, work towards building, but it's like you got a truck full of lumber, right? And you're trying to get to the build site and start putting up walls and start framing out a house. But there's a big roadblock, or there's road construction, or there's something holding you back. And it's this, man. It's a it's or maybe a better thing is you're trying to drive that lumber like a long distance, and it's just the foggiest day, and you just can't move through it. Like you move through it, but it's at a crawl, and it holds you back quite a bit. I've neglected a chat from Clay's roommate for a really long time. It was a follow up to his earlier question, and I want to field it first if you'll let me,
Sure.
because I think I have an answer for it, and if you disagree or agree, you can certainly add your 2 cents. But Clay's roommate says, "But morals, I love my stepdad. If this happened, even though I know it would kill my mother and sister, I'd still throw someone out like that." And he was responding to your response that if you had a different relationship with him, you wouldn't have turned him in. And I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but what you were saying was if you had a different relationship with him, he would have respected your proposition, recognized at least even acknowledged that he had some sort of problem and needed real help and needed to change things, and that's why you wouldn't have turned him in, because he would have built the trust in you over years and years and years of demonstrating a relationship even.
Yeah.
That trust
Correct.
would have allowed you to say, to go up to him, say, no, this is wrong. And for him to say, you're right, or I don't think it's wrong, but let me at least listen and let's see. And then you can go from there, right? Maybe it's just more time because you're like, you think he's going to be able to get past it or get better or get help, and maybe he doesn't. But to me, that's what you were saying. Not that you just, well, no, we're good, so I wouldn't turn him in. Kids getting hurt, whatever. It was no. I'd expect that there would be a back and forth, that there would be a respectful exchange, and that he would understand what was going on. But feel free to add or subtract from that.
No, right. Nick, it's just I did the relationship that I had with him. I think I was the only one left out of my siblings that um, was still interested in getting to know this man and understand like why he is how he is, and how he reacts and responds to his children. And yeah, if that day I had said like, hey, listen, I found what I found, and I can't pretend I didn't see it. I just can't, because it puts the entire house in jeopardy. Everybody could go to jail, and it's very wrong, and you have to get rid of all of it. And he did not take the steps because he's not going to take that from his son, you know, his
Yeah.
stupid son that he doesn't like. My son, why would I fucking listen to my son? My mother, you know, is still my mother, but she listens to me, like she respects the fact that I'm, in my 30s now, and, I've learned and I've gained, and I know what a healthy, strong relationship entails, whether it be like a romantic relationship or a friendship or a relationship with your kids or whatever, or a dude online that has a law show. I know how to connect with people, and I did not learn that from him. So yeah, my response to that is that it was that moment. It implies that the better relationship would have been a relationship at all.
Right. Okay. So right now the case is in limbo. He's had a competency hearing. He's he's found competent, right? Like that's where
We
we're
know.
at, or he's got a
No,
second one.
no, we got so they got needed to get a second opinion, and they went to get their second opinion, and that was scheduled for September 7th or September something, September
Okay,
something.
yeah, you sent me that
And then,
letter. It's right here.
okay, and when that ruling about his competency came through, they ordered a second opinion, which was granted by the judge, and that was scheduled for, I don't know, but that got postponed because the doctor wasn't available on that date, so it got postponed to October 7th or 10th or something. And when that date comes around, it will be postponed for some other reason, because
Right.
that's just how this is going. So
Yeah, and that's one thing I wanted. I wanted to get across. You mentioned that this had been going on a long time, but you didn't tell me at all prior to this. I think I actually asked right before we started, and I said, "Wait, no, don't tell me,"
Yeah,
because
yeah, you did, yeah.
I wanna hear it on the stream. But um, I mean, 2 years is it's a very very long time.
Mm.
But it's common. Not common. It's not uncommon enough. How's that? That's what I want to say. It's not uncommon enough
Sure.
um, that these things, you get an attorney who will drag this stuff out because you, like you said, Jim knows, he's got to know, or his attorney knows, that at some point the hammer will fall on the anvil and he's going to be the one between those two items, right? Like he's done, and
Mm.
he'll go to prison unless they can exhaust every possible long shot and drag this out as long as possible, because he's walking around right now.
Yeah. And
He's
when he goes to jail, he'll have gotten his wish because he won't have to talk to his kids ever again, and my mom didn't even have to die.
right. So, yeah, careful what you wish for, kids. Uh,
Mm.
you might get it. Um, but I want to talk a little bit, if you will, about what you've seen with your mom. I mean, she's you're the one, I presume, who had to tell her, right, that this is going
Yeah.
on, and then you've had to have seen how that's gone. Yeah, I assume your mom is similar age to your dad, because you were. I wouldn't have made that. You said your dad was 69, or Jim was 69. And I wouldn't assume your mom was the same age, except for the fact that you told me that you were 13 years younger than your sibling. So that tells me that she's probably around the same age. Um, so you've seen her kind of go through this and process this. What's it doing? Like, what's it doing to
Yeah.
her? What do you see?
She's probably one of the most interesting. Everybody asks about her, and everybody's confused about her. The bottom line is she is the nicest woman in the world, and she did genuinely love the man, and he did cheat on her. He did hate us all. He did resent us all. He did, all that stuff. But she wanted to have kids, and she took care of us, and she was the parent. He was the person we wanted to avoid. But she it's the easiest thing. If the legal system could have got him in jail in like a month or two, you know, she would have been fine. But it's dragged out so long now that she's still married to the man. She's still in the same house. Obviously, they're in separate bedrooms on separate floors of the house, and they never talk to each other except about absolutely critical things. Um, but he claims that he has her interests in mind, and he's constantly trying to poison her against us. And it doesn't work because we're not bad people. Um, Everything I've presented to you is absolutely genuine. Um, I don't stand to gain anything really by doing this. This is mostly just therapy for me, and content for you, and uh, food for thought for the people that are actually watching and listening. But my mother is she's in retirement, but she's keeping herself busy by continuing to just go back to where she used to work. Um, so she's keeping herself busy working. She comes and visits us all the time, takes care of my brother's dog. I don't know why they got a dog if they couldn't babysit it, but I'm just kidding. But, yeah. No, my mother loves it. She comes up, and then it's an excuse to swing by and see her grandson and stuff. Um, so that's all good. But you know, she, he doesn't understand. I don't think that he understands that she is not in his corner. So when that competency hearing actually pops up, if it actually does, I think it's, like I said, at the 7th or the 10th or something. I'll recheck it. My mother and I are going to go to that together to show him that she is not in his corner. And I I know that she's going to divorce him, but it's easier and more logical and more rational to divorce him after he goes to jail.
Sure.
And and I'm sorry to reveal that plan. I don't think anybody of any importance is gonna. I don't know. You never know, but it's just easier. But I constantly encourage her to talk to a divorce lawyer because any divorce lawyer in the world would fucking drool over this case. Like, yeah, I can get you everything. I can get you the house and get you. It just she won't even talk to a divorce lawyer. And to be fair to her, she's in the last chapter of her life, so this whole thing is unfair. Like she has to deal with this extreme change in the final act of her life. She just wants to be at her house in her bed watching MSNBC and complaining about Donald Trump.
Right.
Um, but she has to think about the fact that her husband was a narcissist who hated his kids and had this enormous collection of pornography, and she's constantly questioning whether or not this is her fault. And just like me, I'm thinking, is this my fault? And it's his fault. You know, um, but why? Everybody's confused why she's still there. I'm not. I understand it. I don't think she would actively admit it, but it is just easier for him to go to jail, and then she serves him the divorce papers in jail. Yeah.
Right. So Clay's roommate says Ben Clay drink. So thank you for that, Clay's roommate. It wouldn't be. I don't think I would be doing my job if I didn't ask you some hard questions.
Right.
And of course, you you are in charge of what you say. So feel free to tell me to get bent or whatever. That's fine. But you're talking about your mom, and you mentioned this plan for divorce. What it sounds like is to me is that you have an idea that she'll divorce him when he goes to prison, but you have no way of knowing if that's actually what's going to happen. And I want to know, just based on what you've said, I mean, is your mom responsible for any of this? Because you said she's the nicest woman in the world. I get that she uh, raised you guys, right? Like I understand that she was the parent when your dad when Jim would not be the dad that he was supposed to be. And Jim, if you ever happen to see this, you did need to be the dad, and that's something that's a shame that you'll have to bear. But um, but your mom stayed with him, right? Like she did stay with him. You said she loved him. I assumed that at some level she probably still does. But does your mom hold any responsibility for this? I mean, because this from what you're telling me, this is not new. Like the charges are new. The discovery of the extreme stuff is new, but the underlying stuff isn't new. So how do you like what does that look like for you?
Well, I guess for my mother, who will absolutely see this, so um, I apologize for expressing how I feel to my mother, but yeah, she's not responsible in any way, but she did do this with the pornography thing, just very head in the sand. And um, so she already has that like train of thought where she's like, well, maybe because I was ignoring the pornography, it ended up being coming, and that'd be child porn, so it's somehow my fault. No, she doesn't bear any responsibility. It's the easiest thing in the world. Um, but it's uncomfortable to talk about sexuality with human beings, I guess. I mean, I'm not going to make that mistake with my kids. I'm going to make sure that they understand the implications of sex and stuff, because you're talking about having kids in STDs and stuff like that at a very young age. And when I was 15, I was definitely trying to get laid. I knew I needed to use condoms, but I was unable to succeed in getting laid. So, um, so it didn't end up mattering. But my son is a pretty good looking kid, and I'm sure that like when he gets his teenage years, I'm like, I'm gonna have to have this conversation with him, and my parents wouldn't talk about it, so they
Right.
had equal blame in that arena. But my mother definitely knew about the pornography, but at the same time, she probably didn't want to have sex with the guy. You know what I mean? Like, at some point, you know, you're with somebody so long, and they're so insufferable, a man like him, that you probably get tired of it. And I guess in a way that could perpetuate the pornography addiction, but I don't know. Um, but all blame lies on the man himself. So, hard
Sure.
question number one, boom, roasted. There you go.
Well, thank you for answering that. Like, you know, I that question. So the genesis of that question is the Stefan Molyneux line of questioning, right? If you watch Stefan Molyneux more than 20 minutes, you'll hear him ask if it's someone's mother's fault. And his conclusion tends to be that it usually, if not always, is. And I wanted to ask that question, kind of because of that. It's to me, it's a curious thing. I don't always agree with him, but I think the question is interesting. What I want to say about that is that I think no one is prepared to deal with this. And I would say no one is prepared to deal with most of the things that hit them in life, like children. You never know how someone's going to react to children. You never know how someone's going to do anything, and so I don't lay blame on your mom or anything like that, uh, where other people might, but yeah, it's just always it's interesting to me to hear where people come down on those types of things if they have some sort of responsibility that they place on someone. So thank you for answering that. But
Sure.
I guess the next hard question is, um, are you worried at all about they say, how do I word this? There's a phrase, I think it's a biblical phrase, something about the sins of the father carry down to the seventh generation or fourth or fifth generation. I don't remember the quote. I think it's an old bit of wisdom, and I think we take it out of context. But there are people who would suggest that with some sort of sexual sin, either there's an origin that predates what's going. Oh, this leads me back to a question I wanted to ask earlier, actually. So people say with sexual sin that there's typically some sort of origin that predates what you're seeing here, like a previous generation. It's a learned behavior or whatever. I would assume that based on your experience here, you really don't feel like this would be something to worry about carrying forward. Certainly not in your family, because you seem absolutely horrified at these sort of things. But it sounds like your brother's in the same boat with you, that and your sister as well. That this is a terrible thing. So my question is, you know, you knew. I assume you knew his parents, Jim's parents, uh, not just the pornography stuff, but is his parenting, does it come from them? Does it come from, where does it come from? Did you see parallels with the grandparents? Did you know your grandparents? I don't know, because you're kind of, you would have been young. Um,
Yeah, well, I don't, I don't, I haven't given this much thought, but my grandmother on that side, who I would call Nana, was Stepford wife, would cook, clean, make great brownies and delicious food. And Grandpa was, he'd pretend to be the Hulk, but I don't really think he knew what the Hulk was. He's like, I'm the Hulk. But I, I talked to Jim a lot about, you know, his past and because I was interested in getting to know him. My brother and sister learned, let's just get the hell away from him. But I was like, well, let's give this man a chance. And apparently, it comes from a long line of hating their fathers, like fighting with their fathers, and like eventually they restore some semblance of a relationship somewhere. But I have a fear, a genuine fear of like, that one day my son is going to hate me. Um, for one reason or another, just I don't know, genetically, for some reason it's coming through that way. But he said that like he was just so hard on you for money and so hard on you for XYZ and stuff like that. I'm like, but did you hear the lesson? Because you didn't pass it on to me, and I'm shit poor, and I think I owe MasterCard something to the tune of $10,000. And I'm like, well, you never get that money.
Now
So
you're in the danger of doxing yourself, buddy.
wait, no, it's Visa. Let's make sure that I got it doxed correctly. Um, no, I have no idea, and I'm doing my best to make our lives work. But I didn't get any sort of lesson. He just said, um, you're supposed to be responsible. I'm like, cool. What the hell does that mean?
Right. What does that look like? What does
Yeah,
that
what
look
does that
like?
look like? And it looks like this. Ready? I'm gonna do an impression.
All right.
I don't know if the cameras can stay on me. That's it. That's what it was. He just watched TV with his head sideways, never made eye contact, and the only time he looked at me was when he was mad. So there you go. That's how that worked. Did I answer your question in there somewhere? Like the generational thing. I
Yeah.
told you I. Okay.
Yeah. No, you did. I think, um, and not directly, but I think I'll let people make their own inferences from that. I mean, I have my ideas. It
Go for
sounds
it.
because you learn. The way I see is you learn two ways. Primarily, you learn by example or you learn by consequence, right? Like it's the operant versus classical conditioning sort of idea. Like the classical conditioning, you get rewarded for the good behavior. Operant conditioning, you get punished for bad behavior. I didn't do well in psychology, so bear with
Okay.
me, psych majors out there. But no, that's the basic idea. But I think if we boil that down to normal people terms, when you're talking about observant learning or experiential learning, you're talking about learning by mimicry, by getting an example that you follow, and that's not always a good thing, or you learn by witnessing the horrific crash, right? And so it sometimes to break a cycle, things have to they have to catch fire and burn to the ground, and it almost seems like if your dad had a really tense relationship with his dad, and his dad had a really tense relationship with his dad, and it was marked by this conflict it's probably from the dad, right? Like, because kids don't know that. That's something that they get as a response to what the parent is putting out. So it sounds like that goes back quite a ways, and there was just never the crash, right? The crash and burn that breaks that cycle. I mean, that's what I'm getting. I don't know what other
Yeah.
people will get from that. I don't know if that sounds right to you, but when you describe, he had to learn his parenting somewhere, and it sounds like he gave you an example of exactly what not to do, you know, um, from my perspective. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Andrew Gluck. I'll grab a beer with you sometime. Sure.
You'll have to come out to Minnesota for that one. Let me know, and then we'll all go together.
It's not like I got a lot going on, right? Um,
But
okay, yeah,
so,
so I guess your assessment in there was interesting, but I can't. You have to be from the outside in. I don't. I'm in it, and all I know is um, love and hate are two sides of the same coin, and I flipped it that day, and um, I loved Jim, but at this point now, like I have nightmares. I have angry thoughts towards him. I'm surprised my brother hasn't assaulted him, honestly, because he has a temper more than I, and he's my big brother. He's like my older brother, even
yeah.
though he's like 6 or 7 inches shorter than me, I think. So I'm not sure, but
Big is a state of mind.
exactly right. He seems big as a personality. Um, but yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't. It's that bad. It's that much ire. Like my sister has some personality disorders as well, and as long as things are sailing smoothly, she's pretty good. But if things are messed up, she can get really off track. And she assaulted me one time because she heard something that I didn't say.
Sure.
And like if I say, "Hey, fuck you, fuck your wife, fuck your kids," you might punch me in the face. But what I said was, "Hey, I like your stupid headphones." Like I like what I actually said was something different, and you punched me for that because you thought I said I hated your wife for your kids, and
Right.
that
Yeah.
that was how it was. Um, so everyone's fucked up in their own right, really, really are. Um, my fiance is struggling with some things, and I've had my best friend sleep with my girlfriend 2 times. 2 times, my best friend. I lost 2 girlfriends, 2 best friends. I'm slowly gaining them back. I don't know if they're, the second one is ever going to be sorry about what he did. He's very stubborn and dogmatic and stuff. But the point is, in order to move on with my life, I have to learn to trust people again. And even though my fiance has these problems, I have to believe her when she tells me something. I'm so familiar with deception that, like, in the back of my head, I can be like, I don't know that I believe that, but if she tells me that, that's what I go with, because in order to make a relationship function, you have to have trust. And I assure you, I did not learn that from my mother and father.
Right. Right. So, well, I mean, I'm trying to think here. So I think, I think we're coming up to a logical end.
Sure.
We've gone through the story. We know that uh, we know that you've got a hearing coming up in October, competency hearing for him. Likely, it's going to get delayed because everything's getting delayed.
Yeah.
Everything's getting delayed. Um, and unfortunately, there's not much you can do about that. But
No, you said that up front, and I do understand that, but um, I really appreciate the platform to do this, and I appreciate everybody. Some of you guys are being inappropriate, but I appreciate what that people are interested in this content and engaging with it. So if
yeah,
anybody wants to, contact me directly, I welcome it. Again, I'm a dickhead, and from Biggest Problem in the Universe and the Dick Show, you know me as Horsecock. Um, and I did a couple of impressions of presidents in the episodes. So that's how you guys might know me. But yeah, long time dickhead, fuck Maddox, and please send me some of that toilet paper because that's funny.
yeah, and what I wanted to do is say, if you could check in with me after that hearing,
Yeah,
and we'll see what's going on. Maybe maybe by that hearing we get maybe it gets delayed, but maybe we get the documents, the charging documents, the affidavit for the warrant, or some transcripts of interviews and stuff like that, and maybe we talk about it. Maybe we talk about what's gone on, because there are two um there are ways to deal with this for you, right? There's only one way for the state to deal with this, and it's through the court process, which is basically like throwing yourself in a blender on the lowest setting and bouncing around on the blades until they finally grind you up, right? Um,
yeah,
Not to put it happy, but that's what the court process is. Whether you're guilty or innocent, it's this horrifically long thing of string of disappointments unless you plea out, and that's, make no mistake, that's what they want you to do, is plea out.
right.
And so I know that the prosecutor said there's nothing you can do, which is pretty much true. But what they're hoping for is a plea out of this, because they don't want to take it to trial. Trial's hard. Pleas are easy. to be brutally honest about that, and I don't hold
Yeah.
much love for prosecutors because of it, except for one, and no, you know who you are, buddy. You're my favorite prosecutor, and you get those drug dealers. But no, so I was hoping, I'm hoping that you can give us an update in October, and if you're willing, and depending on how things go, maybe we read the documents, maybe we talk about who Jim Ciampa is. Maybe we tell the world who he is, and maybe we tell the world what New Hampshire's not willing to lock down and prosecute, right? Like
Yeah, man. And
maybe
then
we
we,
talk
we
about
can
that.
have part two of some guy from New Hampshire you've never heard of.
That's okay. I think I think people are interested in how this goes. I think people are interested in how this affects people, and like, to be brutally honest, I think if you come back in a couple weeks and it's been delayed again, and I think there'll be some obvious markers of how that's impacted you, and that's interesting to me, at least. I mean, hopefully, of course, other people find it interesting, but like I said, I like having good conversations and learning about people's stories and lives and situations and stuff they're dealing with. Before we close out, you said your fiance's in the hospital, and you've got a son that was born early. Is that in the past, or is that in the present?
That's the present. Yeah. My fiance has focal segmental glomerular sclerosis. You might recognize it as one of the problems that was brought into the biggest problem in the universe, which was not enough not enough organ donors.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm usually asleep at this time. Not enough organ donors. Dick was kind enough to bring it in after Sam, my fiance, reached out to him, and he brought it in. So basically, her kidneys can't process protein properly. So she's a professional sick person.
Right.
You wouldn't know it by looking at her, but she's 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 sick, and she's 6.5 months pregnant. We put her in the hospital Friday or Saturday, I can't remember, because she had high blood pressure, and we were concerned because last time we were having these weekly appointments, and she had preeclampsia, which meant
Mm.
that we had to deliver the baby, or one or both people would die.
Yeah.
So um, I disguised that fact when we brought him to the hospital, and somehow everybody involved in the early induction of labor was not aware of how much danger she was actually in. But we have another pregnancy. She's in the hospital again, and I really wish she was just here instead.
Yeah.
Um, her and my daughter. I don't want them in Boston, 60 miles away from me. I want them here because they're my family, and um, yeah, I'll update you on that too. I'm sure it won't be that she's in the best possible hands. She's in the best, top field in America as far as medicine goes, is Boston. They're willing to try crazy shit. They give her chemotherapy, just the rituximab, not the radiation.
Right.
But they accidentally discovered that rituximab um, heals kidney function. So when they were trying to use it to treat cancer patients, they noticed that their kidneys were getting better. So she actually pushed for it, and she got chemotherapy to improve her kidney function. Um, but it is what it is, and she's in the hospital, and she's either going to stay there or be prescribed bed rest for the rest of the pregnancy. So
Sure.
we'll
How
see.
how far along is she?
It's like 6.5 months.
Okay, so that's oh god, what's my math? 6 times 4 is 24. So she's like 26 weeks right now. 20,
Sure, you could have
something like
said
that.
32, 52. I don't know. I don't care.
I only ask I have a cousin whose baby was born, I mean, way early. I never remember. Lady Rackets would know off the top of her head. I think it was like 29 or 30 weeks. Like it was at the point where the baby had a 1% survival rate. It was preeclampsia, and thank God, she was fortunate enough to live, and she's now, she's like 3 years old, and she, I don't know if she has any lingering problems, nothing noticeable, but she's very, very fortunate, and things worked out. So I was just kind of curious what the timeline was like. But someone asked earlier, and I wanted to ask, 23 weeks and 6 days. There's the real Lady Rackets with the answer. Thanks for saving me, sweetie. So she was like almost as premature as they possibly get. But someone asked earlier, and I wanted to ask you, we were talking about religion very tangentially, but are you a religious guy? Do you believe in God? Like where are you on that?
Oh, well, so I would call myself, I have a religion, but it's not any sort of, I don't
It's not
conform to anybody.
formalized.
Yeah, I don't believe in a deity. I believe that life is working together to accomplish something.
Sure.
And it's also competing against itself to accomplish something, like hunting and eating each other, and even fighting amongst its own species. But here we are, humankind, trying to stop global warming and asteroids from hitting the planets. It's why. That's the biggest question in the world is why. Why are we doing this? We're all gonna die someday. Why don't we all just spend all of our days drinking beer and jerking off in the shower? Like, why don't we do that? I don't know. There's something inside of us that's programmed to do it. We can't know the answer to why, and anybody that says that they know why is either lying or they're delusional. Nobody knows, and the reason that I know that they don't know is because they're exactly like me. They're not fucking prophets. They're not, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in any of that stuff. But I'm fascinated with death in the afterlife and the meaning of life. So I'm not Islamic. I'm not Catholic. I'm definitely atheist. But what are they? Somebody had said something. Oh shit. Okay. What's the legal term that they use so that it means not religious? Secular.
Sure. Yeah.
Secular humanist.
Oh, okay.
Is what I call it.
I got two things to say to that. One, you mentioned drinking and jerking off in the shower. I don't know if you're in the Dick Show Facebook group, but there was the shower beer challenge. Guys, don't expand the shower beer challenge to include jerking off in the shower, please. The next thing I want to say is, you may not be religious or no, I shouldn't say that. You may be an atheist or whatever. I'm obviously not. I think you probably know I'm a Christian guy, and so being unable to do much more than that, I would like to say that I will be praying for your wife and your kid.
Thank you. I always welcome that. I have a lot of religious friends because the whole thing is tolerance, and I always appreciate people who are Christ-like and not just Christians.
Right.
A lot of viewers
Me
will
too.
probably notice that.
Me too.
A lot of this is coming directly out of like Bill Maher's mouth, but like it's true. Like I'm happy to have a discussion about it, and I'm not trying to take your religion away from you when I'm having that discussion, because I would never want to do that to somebody, because I've had crises of faith and I've wanted to die because of it, and it's like you have to have a reason to go on. So I would never want to take somebody's reasons away from them.
Right. So. You gotta wrestle with this stuff, right? Like one thing that really struck out to me, you said no one knows, and I think you're absolutely right. No one knows any of these answers. No one knows, and the dumb thing is, whatever the answer is, a lot of us are probably just kind of close to it. In probably a surprising spectrum of people are just kind of close to whatever the truth is, and that's okay, right? Because that's the whole thing is what you're talking about is what is important is that we do try and stop asteroids from hitting the Earth and killing everybody for some reason, even though, you know, we might stab the guy next to us because we want his shoes, or because he spilled beer on us, or because we're standing outside a dumpster by a mattress, and I still don't understand that redneck situation down in Texas. But yeah, it's the end of the day, like, we're all in this stupid boat together, and figuring out, like, how we connect is what I find to be the important question. Like, not that we all connect in the same way, but at least that we do, right? Like, that's
Exactly.
what's important.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
well, man, it's a Monday night. We've gone on for a good amount of time here, so I think let's wrap it up. But I do want to talk to you in October, and we'll see. We'll get a pulse check on how the case is going. And you know, if we need to talk about some other stuff, or if you want to talk about some other stuff, I'd be open for it. And I know at least Ben said that he'd be here. Yeah, he said if there's a part 2, I'm coming back, Dave. So yeah, so let's touch base in October, man. After this alleged hearing, that's the only alleged here, by the way. You don't have to say alleged, because you saw with your own eyes the evidence, and unless this is a Chicago moment, like, what are you going to believe, what I see or what I tell you? You know, you don't have to say they're allegations. The question is not at this point. The question is not whether he did it, right? Like, you know he did it. The cops know he did it. The state knows he did it. They have the recorded conversations. They have all of his admissions. There's no allegations about whether he did this. The question is whether he's criminally liable for it. And that is a matter of law at this point. You know, whether he is competent to make the decisions that he made, whether he's competent to stand trial for those decisions, or if he needs to go into an institution. These are all legal questions that are valid, sure, but you don't have to apologize for saying that this guy was looking at pictures of the worst things that are out there, like the absolute worst stuff. He was, you know, doing it for an extended period of time. It's disgusting and it's horrible. And if, you know, Jim, if you're watching, man, none of this was ever okay, and you'll have to reconcile that in whatever way, with your life and after you die, whatever that looks like. But you don't. I want to be clear, like, man, you don't have to apologize. You don't have to make an excuse for him. You don't have to say allegedly. He did these things. You're the only guy who knows out of all of us. Of course, I'm taking your word for it. The chat's taking your word for it. You seem believable to me, but you're the only guy who knows because you've actually seen the darkness that was there. But you're the one guy, right? The one guy who doesn't have to say allegedly. So if you don't want to say it, don't say it. He did these things. Whether or not he's criminally liable for them, that's the question the state's going to answer now. So.
All right, that's good. That's good to know. So I'll give it. Yeah, I'll be happy to be back in October. I'm glad people enjoyed this, and yeah, I gotta get up to go to work in like 4 hours.
Well, I'm gonna end up the stream and then stay on for just a second, and we'll chat. And I just hate to give people a cold exit. So thank you all for watching, and you know, if you are religious out there, throw some prayers to Dave's fiance, their baby. Scary stuff, man. If you've ever been through premature birth, no premature birth is not scary. Even if everything goes great, it's all terrifying. Regular birth is terrifying enough. So throw some prayers or thoughts or whatever his way. I know thoughts and prayers is a meme, but really, guys, if you've been in these situations, every single one of them really does matter. Even if it doesn't matter, even if you're an atheist and you think that there's nothing to, no spiritual thing happening there, the very fact that there's a bunch of people thinking about you is helpful in times like these. So seriously, throw some real thoughts and prayers. They really do help people on an individual level. And Dave, I want to thank you so much.